Member for Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister responsible for women's issues. Minister, December 6th is National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. This day was established by Canada's Parliament in 1991 to ensure Canadians would never forget the tragic deaths of 14 young women who were murdered at l'École Polytechnique de Montréal on December 6, 1989. As we mourn the loss of these women today, we are also reminded of all women and girls for whom violence and the threat of violence are daily realities. Minister, the Premier has placed upon your directorate the responsibility for continuing the work of leading our government's efforts to prevent gender-based violence, with the goal of an Ontario where all women live free from threat, fear or experience of violence. What initiatives has your directive implemented to raise awareness of violence against women, strengthen support for victims, and to focus on prevention?
Thank you, Minister of Children and Youth Services and Women's Issues.
Thank you, Speaker. And I want to thank the member from Davenport for raising this very important issue and raising awareness on this important day. Speaker, as I've talked about before in this House, our government has increased funding for community services that help deal with domestic violence. That increase has been 55%, Speaker, since 2003. And we actually began these investments at a time when the former government was cutting services, such as to women's shelters. So in 2013-14, we're investing $142 million into these very important services. And I was with the Premier this morning, Speaker, to announce a package of initiatives to raise awareness of sexual violence and harassment, to enhance prevention initiatives to combat sexual discrimination, harassment and violence, and improve support for victims of sexual assault and harassment. We remain very much committed, Speaker, to an Ontario free of domestic violence and sexual violence because we believe every woman has the right to feel safe and secure wherever they may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I think this government has demonstrated that women and their children in crisis are a priority. Recently, there has been a very bright light shone on the importance of supporting women suffering from abuse and harassment. But the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women remind us this is a difficult problem that has been troubling society and its victims for a very long time. Sometimes there is a lack of awareness or information as to the availability or accessibility of resources out there. In Davenport, several not-for-profit organizations provide shelter and counselling for women who have suffered domestic violence. For example, Abrigo and the South Asian Women's Centre both offer a positive environment where women facing abuse can receive a wide array of support. Constituents in my riding of Davenport and advocates have expressed interest in knowing exactly how the government is addressing the needs of women and children at risk. Minister, could you please explain what services and supports are available to women and their children suffering from threats of domestic violence or abuse?
Minister of Children and Youth Services and Women's Issues.
To the Minister of Community and Social Services, Speaker.
The Minister of Community and Social Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as recognised by the Minister responsible for women's issues and through the leadership of our Premier, supporting women who have suffered from sexual and domestic violence is very important to our government. We fund over 200 agencies across the province dedicated to assisting women experiencing violence. In the last year, over 18,000 women and children were served at one of the 96 emergency shelters funded by the government. Over 49,000 women and children visited one of the 177 government-funded counselling agencies that provide crisis support counselling, sexual assault counselling, and long-term therapeutic counselling. Over 55,000 calls from women in need were answered by one of the provincial crisis helplines that are available 24/7. As we reflect on the unfortunate examples of domestic and sexual violence, and from my conversations with the staff of these hard-working agencies, we understand the impact these support services can have on an individual's life and the need for our work to continue.